Any questions?
Don? He always gets the first question.
No, only in basketball.
Press conference is like.
Only in basketball. All right, who's starting at quarterback?
Again, it'll end up being a game time decision.
Okay.
I think we'll need both of those guys, Josh and Piggy. They both are taking reps, 50% of the reps right now, and we'll get through tomorrow's practice. We'll get through Friday's test and tips to see which guy has the best week and has the best knowledge. But I would imagine it's going to take both of these guys for us to go out there and get a win.
They might have come out later, but I didn't see Johnny Jordan or Dante Demas at practice today.
Demas is badly had a temperature today. So he's sick, but I expect him to be back. He practiced yesterday. And then Johnny's dealing with some personal issues that he's working through, but we expect him to be back.
For this weekend, that is?
I don't know for this week. I doubt it.
Okay, yeah. So that would be Ellis then at that center?
Yeah, Ellis. He started the last game at center for us, so it'll be him and Austin Fontaine moves back up with Terrence being kind of iffy.
How has Samo developed since you got him here?
He's gotten better with each week to the point that I thought he's played his best football these last 2 to 3 weeks. I know especially in our last game against Michigan, with our attempt to stop the run, he played a huge role in trying to maintain and control his gap. So I've seen him play his best football here later in the season, which is to be expected with a guy like him coming in from junior college with limited playing experience. It's been good to see him come along now.
I'm not sure, it could go either way, but when you get guys from JUCO, do you have a better idea of what they might be, or is it harder to gauge it when you're
No, I mean, it's a little more body of work than a high school guy, because obviously the physicality and the size of guys at the JUCO ranks as opposed to high school. But when we took the job over, we knew that depth on the defensive line was a major issue for us, losing some of the guys that we lost. And as we evaluated his film, and he was a guy that, again, does a really good job against the run, but also has shown the ability to be an interior pass rusher for us. So, but I still think because, football is still 3 years, 4 years removed from playing as, football, I still think he has such a tremendous upside for us.
What has the mood of Keandre been this week? Just obviously going back to his old team and where he used to go to school. Have you seen any more emotion out of him, or any extra one-two at practice or anything?
You know what? That's the great thing about that kid, is that how he practices today is the exact way he practiced as we got ready for Howard, and that he is a guy that gives 100% every single play that he's out there, practice, game, and that's some of the stuff that kind of, I hope some of our young players have an opportunity to really see and watch the way he approaches things. And we always talk about what type of habits you got to have to be able to be a guy that plays consistently. He's been one of those guys. So his approach for this week hasn't been a whole bunch of more rah-rah or a little more edge to him. He's been really consistent just the way he has been, and he's been a productive player.
And do you think just because of the play of Keandre and obviously Shaq, and then Chance and Indy also getting, kind of emerging as well, do you feel as though kind of the linebacker position's been one that's gone a little overlooked this year as one of the better kind of deeper positions on the team?
No, I mean, I think obviously, when you look and see that, Chance and Ace are both sophomore players in our scheme, but then you look at a guy like Shaq who has another year available to him, and then obviously Keandre being a senior. Those two guys on the outside have brought leadership as much as anything to the program and to the defense. But no, I definitely feel like our linebacker unit has been probably a consistent group for us. Now, we've had bits and pieces of games where, I know Ace struggled in the middle a little bit, where he missed some tackles, and we put another guy in front because, Isaiah Davis, again, has been playing really well, and we've rotated, those three inside all year long. But I do feel like it's been a consistent unit for us, along with our running backs.
How does Johnny's absence this week, who's the next man up in terms of backing up Ellis?
Yeah, well, it affected us last week. I mean, Johnny wasn't available last week either. So obviously just the depth with Johnny being out right now and Terrence not being 100%, we're thin. I mean, we're probably 7 deep in terms of, you know, how we've had to practice, but Ellis is because of his ability to play across the board. You know, last week he moved into the starting center position. You know, we got Austin played the whole game, and with Terrence being nicked up and re-injuring it a little bit, what's happened is we've had to kind of Evan Gregory now moves into the rotation as a possible backup for us, as well as Tyron Hunt, who again are two younger guys that now they've moved into some positions where they have to fill the depth for us. But luckily we have enough depth where Ellis can play across the board. Austin has played some center for us. And then, you know, Spencer Anderson has really probably been the next guy up in terms of from the starting five. He's the sixth guy, and we've played him across the board as well.
Was Johnny's absence last week the same thing?
Yes.
Is it anything reflective? What is the situation in Minnesota where he didn't start, or?
No, it has nothing to do with the playing, or as far as I know. But he's dealing with some personal issues that I'm sure he'll work through it.
Okay.
We talked about Lance yesterday, and I know his packages were fairly limited, but what does he get out of playing against a Michigan defense that he maybe doesn't get out of Howard? Or, you know, how does that help his development, kind of seeing those looks?
Well, I think one, you know, the timing of when he plays. Obviously, we played him early in the year to where, you know, he was coming out of training camp. He had a bunch of reps from practice underneath him running our system and not running a scout team. And then, you know, as we looked at how we want to develop our guys, we want to try to bring some of these young guys along at the end part of our season, because we'll be heading into our off-season program here within the next month or two. And then, you know, so for us, it gives him a chance to see how he's developed with the individual work that he does every day. You know, so even though guys are running a scout team, they're still getting the individual drill work that you need to develop players. They're still sitting in the meetings, hearing the terminology, taking the game plan stuff in. So, you know, I think it's just how you play them across the board. In the past, you may play a guy in 4 games early and be done with it, but we've tried to spread it out just because of development and how we want to develop the roster across the board.
Maybe it's just more based on practice because it has been limited, but have you seen him take a jump in where he was in August versus as a freshman quarterback? I'm sure.
I mean, his knowledge of defenses, I mean, you know, one of the toughest things with the quarterback position, depending on how they've been trained prior to coming here, you know, the coverages at this level, the speed of the game, all the complexities of getting your protections set, those are all things that were so new to Lance with his background in terms of what he came to Maryland, the skill set he came now. Throwing the ball, arm strength, athleticism, toughness, those are all things that he had, but he's grown so much with his football intelligence as a quarterback, understanding our system. And one of the toughest things playing quarterback is it's not as much as what you do, as much as what you can read and see from the defense in order to make decisions. And, you know, Scotty's done a good job with developing that room and bringing them on.
You talk about you're playing for next year, but you're still playing to win.
Yeah.
And, you know, looking at, I know you don't want to look past Ohio State, but would you consider giving Lance, building a game plan around him just to see how he would handle that responsibility going forward if he shows enough in practice?
You know, the thing is that we build these packages not just for Lance, but for Piggy and for Josh, or whoever the quarterback is, from week to week as we go in. Now, some plans are more flexible to where a Piggy plan and a Lance plan could overlap, whereas a Lance and a Josh plan may be a little differently. So we wouldn't necessarily just build a Lance plan, but we go in and have certain packages of what we've done throughout the year that we say, hey, these are more Lance type calls and plays that we would utilize with him. So, but to build a game plan just to say, hey, Lance as our starting quarterback, or to put him into that situation, I mean, no, we want to try to win. We want to do everything we can to win, and not that we can't win with Lance, but I do think, you know, Josh and Piggy still give us the best chance to do that.
With Nick Cross, I mean, how much of a priority was it when he first got here to kind of flip him as a local 4-star prospect to get him in this program to kind of maybe a founding stone for?
I mean, it was a huge get for us, obviously. You know, I was recruiting Nick to Alabama, and he had made the decision to go to Florida State, and it was leaning heavily toward going to Florida State. And so when I got hired here, there was a list of guys that we thought we would try to get back in on, and he was one of them. One, because of the type of player I knew that he was capable of being, and obviously there's some familiarity because of Coach Brooks being a part of our staff and those types of things. But I had developed a personal relationship with him over the last couple of years, recruiting him for my other place, and he was one of the first phone calls I made because he's one of the few guys that still hadn't committed just yet.
What are there different tactics you take? I mean, if you didn't get him at Alabama, but when you try to get him here, are there different ways?
It's not
to go about
necessarily
it?
different tactics. I think obviously, it's a difference as a coordinator on the other side of the ball, recruiting him as the head coach. That's going to have an opportunity to be more impactful in his development. So, I was an offensive coordinator recruiting him to play in the scheme there, but as the head coach, I think it just brought a different perspective on the type of impact that I could have in terms of developing him to earn a degree, play at the next level, and win games for Maryland.
What stands out to you about him, perhaps off the field or on the field, just with
Well, I think the big thing is he
character?
is such a sharp kid. I mean, he's really high football intelligence, just a really smart kid, even off the field. He has the characteristics of the great ones that you typically see, where he's one of the first phone calls or text messages that we get after a game. How did I play? What can I do to be better? I know he's said a lot of things where when he walks off the field, even after some of these tough losses, he's one of the guys that as a coach you like to hear, because he says, Coach, we're going to get better. We'll have our day. And to me, those are the types of kids I'm used to being around and being surrounded by, and that I want to recruit, that understand that, they want to come here and be developed with an opportunity to go to the next level. I think all these kids that we recruit, that should be a goal of theirs. And it's our job to make sure these guys get degrees, and our job is to make sure they build their resumes outside of the football program. But he's a football guy. He's a guy that's constantly, you see him and a guy like Dino Tomlin after practice for 45 minutes working on skill development, and that's without coaches there. And to me, that's how you develop your program, and that's what I'm used to seeing from great players.
During the bye week, obviously, coaches, you're going out recruiting.
A little bit.
Does the message, do you have to change the message at all with the way the season has gone, or was the message the same as it was in August, the same as it was in February and March?
I think we've been real consistent in the messaging that, we're a program that's in the developmental stages, and as much as I would like to come in here and win the Big Ten East and win the Big Ten in year one, we're setting roots for a long stay here, and we really, if you look at when Maryland has had success, it's had success with the culture being cemented within the program, and we're in year one of it, and we haven't backed away from that. We have a vision that's really clear and concise of what this place can be. And again, I've been here to see what it's looked like when we've had great success, obviously building it through Coach Vanderlinden and staying on with Ralph. So no, the messaging has been, look, we're building this program for the future. We want to win now, and we're going to do everything we can to bring in the right kind of guys that can help us expedite it or grow it as fast as it can grow. But we want to lay the foundation and pour it really solid and make sure it's really set in to have sustainability over the course of my career here. So I'm not, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we've continued to push that messaging.
The fact that you've been here with a success and also with tough times, but your predecessors on this job couldn't say that. They couldn't say, well, I've been here at, X amount of years, or with Ralph or whoever. Do you feel that gives you an advantage with the local coaches, with the community, that they could say we're gonna build, but they haven't been here to do it?
I would hope that it does, and not just here. I look at, and luckily I got a guy like Ron Zook on my staff where, our first year at Illinois was tough, and he always reminds me of that, as we're here in the eye of the storm and going through a tough part of the schedule, and obviously not necessarily having the results we want to have, but 2 years later we're playing in the Rose Bowl, and just understanding that you stick to the plan, you don't make just emotional decisions for the sake of satisfying others outside of here, because the only thing that really matters is what we think. And as long as you keep a really clear, simplistic view of where we are and where we want to be, Now, our focus, and me as the head coach, is to make sure that all our focus is on right now, doing things today. Now, I have to have a macro view of it across the board as to what my ultimate vision is. And as long as you keep that down the road and that vision really clear and simplistic, I think if we focus on being really good today and growing today and bringing the right kind of kids in today and having the right kind of culture, that we'll have the type of program that our people and fans and former players will be really proud of. But it's a growth mindset that we need to have, and it'll take whatever it takes.